The stage is shifting in North America, and this time the dispute has nothing to do with factories, tariffs, or trade deals. The focus has turned to something far more essential: water. As drought spreads deeper across the American South, Donald Trump has made it clear that the vast rivers and lakes of Canada are the prize he has in mind. From Washington, the demand grows louder, framed as a matter of survival. In Ottawa, the reply is sharp and unyielding, with Prime Minister Mark Carney pushed into the spotlight as the defender of Canada's sovereignty. What began as economic quarrels over steel and lumber has now escalated into a clash that could reshape the continent's future. So how far will this confrontation go, and could it tip into something even more dangerous? Donald Trump's declaration about Canada's rivers sent a shockwave across North America, not only because of its boldness, but because of what it represented. In a single speech, he placed water at the heart of America's survival, naming it the key to keeping crops alive, industries running, and communities from collapse. He singled out the Columbia River, a massive system winding for more than 2,000 kilometers, beginning in the Canadian Rockies and crossing into American territory. For decades, that river was governed by the Columbia River Treaty, an agreement dating back to 1961 that ensured flood control and shared hydroelectric benefits. The treaty had symbolized cooperation between the two countries, yet in Trump's hands it became something else entirely. He portrayed water not as a shared responsibility, but as a resource the United States should be able to claim in the face of drought and crisis. In Ottawa, the response was swift and defiant. Prime Minister Mark Carney, a figure more often linked to international banking than fiery political standoffs, stepped into a role that few expected him to embrace. His words left no room for compromise. Canada's rivers, lakes, and freshwater reserves, he declared, were not commodities to be traded away, nor assets to be claimed by a foreign government. His firmness carried weight, and it resonated across the country. Advocacy groups, indigenous nations, and environmental organizations echoed his message, describing Trump's demand as an outright threat to Canadian sovereignty. Within hours, what had once been routine negotiations transformed into an international confrontation, with the world watching to see how it would unfold. The refusal created immediate ripples south of the border. Western states, where drought had deepened year after year, had counted on Canadian water as a lifeline. California's Central Valley, the beating heart of American agriculture, produces nearly 40% of the nation's vegetables and two-thirds of its fruits and nuts. Farmers there had been promised new supplies, water they believed would flow down from Canada to save orchards, vineyards, and fields. Instead, canals ran dry, allocations were cut, and the hope of relief vanished. The frustration was raw, especially in communities that had already endured shrinking harvests and shrinking incomes. The consequences stretched far beyond farms. As crops withered, prices soared. Families across America noticed the difference on supermarket shelves, where the cost of staples like lettuce, almonds, and tomatoes rose steadily. Inflation, already a source of strain, grew heavier with each trip to the grocery store. Economists warned that the shortages would not only affect American households, but also ripple into global markets, disrupting supply chains that linked California's produce to kitchens from Asia to Europe. A political statement made in Washington had reached the dinner tables of millions. Industries faced their own shock. In Arizona, home to vast semiconductor plants that consume millions of gallons of water each week, executives had trusted in Trump's assurance that Canadian reserves would be secured. Those expectations collapsed overnight. Production lines that powered everything from smartphones to defense equipment suddenly looked vulnerable. Across the Midwest and Pacific Northwest, hydro-reliant manufacturers and resource-intensive facilities faced the same dilemma. The promise of stability evaporated, replaced by uncertainty and the specter of cutbacks. The fallout struck hardest in the industrial heartland. Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, states where Trump had pledged a revival in steel and auto production, saw factories slow their pace. Steel mills reduced output, assembly lines idled, and thousands of workers were forced to wonder whether their livelihoods could survive the shortages. The vision of an American resurgence, built on the strength of its industries, gave way to anxiety over whether production could be sustained at all. Energy producers were equally exposed. Hydroelectric facilities in the Pacific Northwest, already weakened by years of shrinking reservoirs, had looked to Canada for backup. When that door closed, utilities scrambled for alternatives. Many turned to coal and gas plants, reversing years of effort toward clean energy and driving household electricity bills higher. What had been presented as a solution for stability now appeared as the trigger for higher costs and heavier dependence on fossil fuels. Trump had promised to showcase American strength and self-reliance, yet the episode highlighted limits instead. A smaller neighbor had resisted his demand, and the United States found itself unable to bend Canada to its will. Even more alarming for border communities was his suggestion that the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement could be discarded. Those lakes supply drinking water for tens of millions of people and anchor billions in trade and commerce. The idea that protections could be stripped away left residents of cities like Detroit, Chicago, and Cleveland unsettled, questioning whether the agreements that safeguarded their most basic needs were truly secure. Markets quickly reacted to the uncertainty. Investors began calculating the risks of water scarcity, particularly in industries with heavy consumption. Agricultural stocks declined, semiconductor companies faced volatility, and energy firms braced for instability. Consumers saw the effects in higher costs for food, electronics, and power as the economic fallout reached across sectors. Ottawa's refusal had triggered a chain reaction that underscored just how fragile the American economy could be when resource access was denied. For Canada, the moment became a turning point. Carney's decision made clear that sovereignty outweighed even the most immediate economic benefits. Washington had long assumed that Canada would always provide resources in times of American need, a dependable reserve that could be tapped without question. That assumption shattered. Canada's refusal made it clear that control over water was non-negotiable and that national resources would not be sacrificed, even under intense pressure from its most powerful neighbor. The confrontation revealed something larger than a bilateral dispute. It showed that water had become the defining resource of the 21st century. In the past century, oil dictated power and shaped alliances. Today, the same is true for freshwater. Canada's rivers and lakes had once provided America with a quiet assurance, the knowledge that no matter how deep the drought stretched, a solution lay to the north. That comfort has disappeared, and the implications are global. Across the world, water scarcity drives conflict and competition. In the Middle East, disputes over the Jordan River and the Euphrates dominate regional politics. In Asia, upstream powers hold leverage over neighbors reliant on the Mekong and the Brahmaputra. Trump's confrontation with Canada did not merely unsettle North America. It positioned Ottawa as a pivotal player in a global contest over water. For both allies and adversaries, the message was unmistakable. Canada had become a gatekeeper to one of the planet's most valuable resources. The Columbia River Treaty illustrates the magnitude of the shift. When it was signed in 1961, it was hailed as a model of peaceful cooperation, balancing American flood control needs with Canadian profits from hydroelectric generation. For decades, it functioned without controversy. Trump's decision to freeze its renewal transformed it into a warning that even the most reliable agreements could unravel under political pressure. Leaders around the globe took note, recalculating their trust in American reliability. For Canada, the treaty became proof that water was not only a resource, but also a tool of national power. The Great Lakes added yet another layer of complexity. They provide water to 40 million people and serve as an artery for trade worth hundreds of billions. Their shipping lanes connect the heart of North America to markets across Europe, Africa, and Asia. Trump's hints at undermining their protections shook confidence not only in Canada, but in global markets. The idea that the world's largest freshwater system could be turned into a political bargaining tool injected a new kind of uncertainty into international trade. Other powers began to take notice. Beijing, skilled at securing resources abroad, started exploring opportunities in Canada's water sector, offering investments in exchange for future access. For China, water is not simply a utility, but a strategic asset, vital for sustaining both industry and urban growth. In Europe, policymakers weary of recurring droughts began to view Canada as more than a distant partner. Southern Europe's parched farmlands looked north with growing interest, seeing Canadian water as a potential solution built into long-term planning. At its core, this conflict was never solely about rivers. It was about credibility, leadership, and the balance of power in an era defined by scarcity. Canada's refusal revealed that America's closest allies no longer automatically bend to its demands. The greater shock for Washington lay not in being denied water, but in realizing that unquestioned compliance is no longer guaranteed. A new age of contested resources has arrived. The path forward carries risks for both sides. For the United States, Trump's confrontational approach leaves limited options. Tariffs invite retaliation in lumber, energy, and steel. Legal disputes drag on without resolution. Attempting unilateral diversions would bring direct conflict with Canada. For Ottawa, the course is clearer. Carney's refusal has locked water into the heart of sovereignty, a principle so strong that no Canadian leader could reverse it without political collapse. Federal protections are already being expanded to make sure that pressure from abroad never forces the issue again. So, what do you think about all this? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next one.